Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to show you guys how to configure InterVLANs and OSPF on layer 3 switches. Okay, so right now we have 3 different networks that we need to configure. And so the first thing, I've already got the IP addresses set up on the PCs here. So that part is done. So the first thing I'm going to do at this point is go into the switch. And we want to create the VLANs for this switch. So I've actually already got the first 3 set up. Where are we going? So yeah, so the first 3. So we already went to config mode and entered the number VLAN 10, VLAN 20, VLAN 30, and the name. So as you can see there, we got those set up. And if I exit out and do a show VLAN brief command, we can see that we have the 3 VLANs created, but we don't have any interfaces connected to that. So let's go ahead and do that. So go back into global configuration mode, and we got to find out which interfaces. Okay, so for VLAN 10, the interface, and so I'm going to use the interface range command so I can configure more than one interface at a time. Fast Ethernet 0/8 and 7, or 7 and 8. And I want to make this port a switch port. Mode access, so we know that the switch knows we're talking to end devices. And switch port access VLAN. And we will do the same for the other interfaces. So interface VLAN range 0. I guess it is 5 and 6. Yeah. And we're going to do switch port mode access again. Switch port. And then we're accessing VLAN 20. And then that interface range. And so this one is F0, 3, and 4. Yeah, switch mode, like I said, tells the switch that these ports are just going to be for end devices like computers. So, well, not just for actually, it's so we can talk to the end device. So mode, and we have options here. We can actually set the mode to trunk, but we're not trunking VLANs in here. We're not trunking more than one VLAN, I should say. So a trunk port is meant for when you're trying to send multiple VLANs through a singular port, usually when you're talking to a couple switch to switch or switch to router. So we're not doing that with that. So access switch port access, and I can actually hit the autocomplete access VLAN 30. So if I exit out of here and do a show VLAN brief, oops. So in the global configuration mode, you can only do show commands if you do this do in front of it. So do show VLAN brief. And I didn't have to complete the word because it already knew that brief was the only command with those letters. So VR works for that. So we can see that the ports are now configured that we're looking for on this guy for the switch. And so now we have to, because we're on layer 3 switches, we need to set up routing if we want to do InterVLANs. So this part was just to create the VLANs. Now we need to actually do what's called router on a stick and set up the IP address routing for the InterVLANs, so the VLANs can talk to each other. And since, like I said, we don't have a router involved in the situation, but because layer 3 switches can do routing, we have to configure this switch to do that. So the way we configure that is that we need a command called IP routing. IP routing. So the command IP routing will enable routing on the switch. And if I actually exit and do a show run, you go all the way to the bottom here. It's up here actually. It's supposed to be, okay, so you see where it says IP routing, so that's how we know the IP routing is enabled. We can actually see in the running config. So we need to configure these ports to do InterVLAN. So if we go into config T, we go back into, actually we're going to go into the VLAN interfaces themselves. So once we create a VLAN, we can actually go into that VLAN's interface. It's not like a physical interface, like a port that you would connect a wire into or a cable, but it's a virtual or a logical interface that the switch understands. So we're going to go into the interface, VLAN 10, and see it change that state to up. And we're going to encapsulate, so on routers we would do encapsulation .1q, and then put the number of the VLAN that we're encapsulating. But because it's already encapsulating it, it's already a switch, it's already doing that part, we don't have to do that. So we just need to add the IP address. So I've got the network set up on the computers here, and so for VLAN 10, it's a 192.168.10 address with a /24 subnet mask. VLAN 20, 192.168.20 subnet or network with a subnet mask of 24, and the same for VLAN 30, 192.168.30 address. So for VLAN 10, we're going to set it up as 192.168.10.1, 255.255.255.0 as the subnet mask, and no shut just as a habit. No shut means that the port is not shut down, or the interface is not shut down. Just a good habit to do. So now let's go into VLAN 20. The address 192.168.20.1.255.255.255.0, and exit interface VLAN 30. The address 2.168.30.1. Show IP interface brief to check. So at the bottom here, we can see that the VLANs actually have their own interfaces. You do a show IP interface brief, and we can see the IP addresses that we've assigned to it. So we should be able to now ping from one VLAN to the other. I go to PC that's in VLAN 10. I'm going to ping 192.168.30 2, which is a PC and VLAN 30. Let's see what it does. And so the first ping is probably going to fail because it is ARP. It's using ARP, so it doesn't know the MAC address. The switch doesn't know what IP has, which MAC address has which IP. So when it's sending out the first ping and the switch doesn't know where everything is, it's sending out an ARP protocol to find out who has this IP address, and it's matching it to the MAC address of the computer. So the first one failed, but the other 3 went, so we're good there. So we know we have communication between the VLANs on this network, which is great. But now what if we want to communicate to these other networks here? Okay, so let's go to switch. Let's go to switch network 2 here. And config global configuration host name layer 3 switch 2. Always good to rename your switches. And then let's go into, so we're going to create the VLANs first. VLAN 40 name sales VLAN 50 name, I believe, engineering. Interface range. This is for 3 and 4, so fast Ethernet 0/3 to 4. So that's how we get the range. We're able to do it because I'm using a 3 and then a dash, and it could be any number after, as long as it's, you know, above the number you put. But yeah, 3 to 4. Oops, see, can't go backwards. 3-4, and then switch port mode access, switch port access, VLAN 40. Interface range, fast Ethernet 5-6. Switch port mode access for end devices, switch port access, VLAN 50. Now let's go back into the interface of VLAN 40 like we did before, the other switch. And we're gonna configure the IP address. So IP IP address 192.168.40.1.0 base VLAN 50 dot 1.255.255.255.0. Now I have everything set up except for one command, which is the IP routing command. So let's see what happens let's see if we're able to ping between PCs, even if that command isn't on. So I'm going to ping this PC on the other network here, 50.2. I know that's, let's see. It should fail. And as you can see, it is failing. The first one's going to fail, but the second, third, fourth, they are failing because the IP routing configuration or command has not been enabled. So once we're in global configuration mode, we just type IP routing. Now let's see if we can ping. First one's going to fail again because it's doing ARP, trying to match MAC addresses with IP addresses. And now we're able to ping because the layer 3 switch is now enabled for routing. So after that, we have, let's see if we want to communicate between these VLANs. Now, in order to do that, we have to create a network or establish some type of communication. So what we're going to use is OSPF, which is open shortest path first. And I'm going to do this by going into the first router. So here. Show IP protocols. Let's see. So there's no protocols, so there's nothing to show IP route. So as we can see, there's nothing established. The only connections we have in this routing table are directly connected to the device. So we have those 3 VLANs set up. So let's go into global configuration mode, and we want to set up OSPF. So we do that by doing router OSPF, and then the process ID number, which is just a number for the local device. And so now we're in here, and what we want to do is first we could set up the router ID. So the router ID is basically what is the ID of this router. And so we could do 1.1.1.1. You don't need a subnet mask for this because it's just an ID. And then after that, we need the networks that we are trying to communicate from our network to someone else. So we need to add the 192.168.10, 20, and 30 networks, okay? So you do the network command, and then the 192.168.10.0. And then what we do is we actually use a wild mask, subnet mask. So it doesn't look like 255.255.255.0. It's actually the opposite or flipped. So whatever your subnet mask is when it looks, how you normally see it, like 255.255.255.0, you're going to do the opposite or inversion of that form. So it's going to look like this: 0.0.0.255, because yeah, that's the wild mask version of it. It's kind of weird looking at first. It's kind of hard to like get used to that version, but once you do it a couple of times, you start to get used to like knowing what that is. And then what we have is an area, and so the area is the area that these networks are going to be, I guess, broadcasted on. And so we need to actually establish a backbone area, which is 0. So OSPF, we have to have a backbone area, and that backbone area is always 0. So just remember that when you're establishing that. I'm going to go back and basically do the same thing for 20. Do the same thing for 30. And now, so sweet. Okay, so we got that. And now I'm going to go in here and do the same thing. So once again, router, OSPF, and then I'm just going to name it 1. And you can see that it changes to config router. And router ID for this one, I'm going to do 2.2.2. The network that we are advertising from this router is .40.0, 0 wild mask version, area 0 is the backbone, and we're gonna, awesome. So if we do but the one thing we actually haven't done yet is we haven't configured the interfaces that on the layer 3 switches. So if we go back, we actually need to configure this the interface that it's communicating between the switches. So for this is going to be interface F01. And so I'm going to actually tell the switch that it's a non-switch port. Yeah, it's a non-switch port. And so what that does for layer 3 switches, it gives you the ability to configure like IP settings. Otherwise, it's being used as like a layer 2 switch port. So now I can go into the interface already there, and let me see, go into there, and we do IP OSPF 1, that's the process ID, area 0. So basically I'm telling this configuration that I'm configuring OSPF for this interface. Same for this one here. F0, I believe it's 1. Yeah, 1. Once again, it's not a switch. We're doing a non-switch port command so that we can have okay, because if you do a question mark and you look at the configurations I have available now, and then I do a switch port command, and then look at you can see that they're actually different. Let me see what we have. Okay, see, there's no IP. Where's the ability to do that? No switch port. Okay, yeah. So before I only had like certain commands I was able to do, but there was no IP configuration that I could do. But if we do here, if we go, I believe it's, yep, there it is right there. There's IP. Oh, it's on here too. I tried this last time and for some reason it wasn't able to work. So maybe I'm using a different switch. But either way, we're gonna go config. I also need to create the IP addresses for these interfaces. So I'm going to do that first on this one. IP address 10.0.0. I'm doing a different configuration for the network between these switches. I'm doing a 10.0.0.0.30. And with that subnet mask, we only get 4 IP addresses and 2 usable IP addresses. So I will second one available 255.255.255.252 is actually the subnet mask. And then I'm going to do OSPF. I'm going to ask for the ID, which is that one, area 0. Okay, let me go back into here and configure the IP address on this interface. The address 10.0.0.1 55.255.252. Once that is established, they should start to communicate with each other. Let's see, exit and show IP. Show IP OSPF neighbor. Actually, yeah, so I'm able to see that actually see that there. Let's see if we can ping from one PC of ping on 192.168.40.2. Let's see if we can get up there. Oh, there we are. Okay, so it did work. It just took a minute. So I'm able to ping from this VLAN through this router, and because we establish OSPF on these interfaces here, it's able to see and connect to that network there. So it's great. And then on the third switch here, we're going to go in here and no, and the host name. And so I'm going to name this layer 3 switch 3. Let's configure those one VLAN. So VLAN 60, name, counting, and exit, interface range 3 or 4, F0, 3 to 4, switch port mode access, port access, VLAN 60, exits, and then let's see. Okay. Yeah. And so I'm also going to do the IP routing command because I'm going to be routing this and go into the interface of VLAN 60, IP address 192.168.60.1, 255.255.255.0. No shut. Exit. And let's see. From there, let's go ahead and configure OSPF for those interfaces. So actually, I'm going to go into the interface. For interface F01, that's connecting to network 2. We have a network that's using 10.0.0.8 with a /30 network. That gives us 4 IP addresses and 2 usable. So if we go interface F0/1, put the address 10.0.0. Since 8 is the network ID, we're going to use the first usable, which is 9. 255.255.255.252. Oh, yep. See, I can't do it. I can't do this until I do the no switch port. Now I should be able to configure. See, now I'm able to make that change. And on the, just do a no shut, even though it's probably already up, but good habit. Interface F02. IP address for that is 10.0.0.24. So because it's doing a 10.0.0.4 network, the first usable is going to be a 5. So we do a 5, 255.255.255.252. Oh, and once again, I did not do the no switch port because it was using that port as like a layer 2 switch. Once we say no switch port, it's able to access the IP configuration modes. Awesome. So on that, I have to, let me just go back and configure the rest of the ports here. For the network 2, F02, no switch port, no switch port, IP address 10.0.0.10 is the other usable. And now we're going to configure with this IP, this interface here, config T, interface F02, no switch port, IP address 10.0.0.456. So 6 is the only other usable because it's a /30, and 252 is the longhand version of the /30 network. That's why it looks like that. No shut. And let's see, from there we got all right. So now that we've got that, I'm gonna go and configure OSPF for this one, and I'm gonna include the other networks that we have. So exit router OSPF 1. I'm gonna configure the router ID as 3.3.3.3. And the networks that I'm going to be advertising is 60.0. The wildcard subnet mask for that is 255 because it's using the inversion of the 255.255.255.0. And I'm going to make it in the area 0. And then I'm also going to advertise the 10.0.0.4 network because that is the other network that I'm connected to. And because it is a /30, if we have 255.255.255.252 as the /30, then the only opposite of that is 0/0/0/3 because 255 plus 3, 252 plus 3 is 255. So basically, that is the inversion wildcard subnet mask for that area 0. And we're going to do the same for the 8. Oops. Oops. 8. Awesome. And then I need to go into the interface for both of them. F0 range F0, 1 and 2. And I'm going to IP OSPF process ID area 0. IP OSPF. Okay, maybe you can't do it when it's okay. Let's do this. Interface F01 IP OSPF. Okay, so I guess you can't use the process ID for multiple. OSPF 1 area 0 interface. This is probably gonna start establishing something with the other network. Let's see, 2. P OSPF 1 area 0. Exits and show P. Let's see, PF neighbor. Then I might not be, because these other interfaces aren't configured, that's why. So the reason I need to configure the rest of this. And I'm gonna add their advertise their other networks as well. So T, and we're gonna go back into the router OSPF, and we're gonna go to process ID 1 since that's where we've been configuring these. Network 10.0.0.0, and it's a 30.network, so 0.0.0.3 is the inversion area 0, and then network 8 for that one. Interface F02. No switch port, which I believe it's already that. Oh yeah, so it's already establishing that. And IP OSPF 1 area 0 to show IP OSPF. Okay, cool. I'm already establishing connections. Go back into this config mode, router, OSPF 1 network. We're just going to add these real quick. 10.0 3 area 0. And then advertise the other network that we're connected to. Base F02. IP OSPF. Already establishing again, connecting. So when it says loading to full, that means that it's established a connection with, or is configuring, establish the OSPF configuration. So IP OSPF process ID 1 area 0 on interface F02. So now we should be able to, if we go back to here, show IP OSPF neighbor. And now we're able to see the neighboring IDs. They're not necessarily, well, they could be IP addresses, but they're just the IDs. So, you know, it could be kind of anything, but I've established IDs, priority, 1, state, full, DR, designated router, and then the IP addresses of the other networks, of the other interface. So, so that's, and then the interface that it's going out of. So now if we go back to PC or VLAN 10, I should be able to ping the IP address on that other computer at VLAN 60. So I'm going to do 2. Doing ARP again. And we got connection. So yeah. So I know that was kind of a long-winded video. But yeah, I really just wanted to show you guys, you know, the detailed version of InterVLANs and OSPF configurations, and yeah, what it looks like. So feel free to, if you have any questions, ask them in the comments. But yeah, appreciate you guys watching, and see you guys in the next video.